Hello and welcome to Tuesday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson. Keith, how's it going?
I'm all right, mate. I'm okay. I think, how it's freezing outside?
Mm.
So I've overclubbed. I've just realised I'm in here and I forgot that this is a studio stroke sauna.
Aye, it's very
so I've
warm,
overclubbed, aye.
the Hotline Live studio. Before we go on, actually, I need to ask, how was your dinner at Gianni's last night?
It was nice. It was good. Yep, it was fine.
Better without Gianni?
Good standard. Yep, they made a nice pizza.
On to football, as we tend to talk about. Understand that before that, actually, we will be talking about Scotland a little bit later on, the Scotland squad. Record Sports' Fraser Wilson was with Steve Clarke today. He will hopefully be joining us in the not too distant future. But you have an exclusive for us, Keith.
Yeah, it's a bit of breaking news with regards Rangers Europa League tie against Fenerbahce at Ibrox on Thursday night. Brian Laudrup reached out and wanted to get his points across, and basically Brian Laudrup has made it clear. We've got the story up online just now. It'll be over the next couple of days. There's a couple of parts to it. In the paper tomorrow as well, part 2. But basically, Brian Laudrup has made it clear that he is preparing to fly to Glasgow this week, and because he says he wants to be there to support Barry Ferguson and to be seen to support him. I'll read you some quotes that we've got from the piece that's just gone up online just now, and he's talking clearly about he feels that Rangers have lost a sense of identity. He feels that a succession of different managers who don't really understand the DNA of the club have contributed to this sort of degrading of standards. Now, bear in mind that Brian Laudrup's a guy who played for 4 years at Ibrox under Walter Smith, the greatest of them all. And I think what he's trying to say in this is that Walter Smith understood the club inside and out, and I think he feels that kind of generally over the years that sort of connection has been lost, which is why he's really endorsing the interim appointments of Barry Ferguson and his backroom team, and I think he makes it quite clear in this interview. I think he would like to see them get it on a more permanent basis. Obviously, I think he makes the point that Rangers have got a couple of very important games, and if it goes well for Rangers against Fenerbahce on Thursday, and if they put on a decent performance against Celtic on Sunday, I think at that point he feels that Barry Ferguson would be a genuine contender, and I think it's something he would like to see. Let me read you some quotes, Daniel,
Sure.
that we've got up online just now. So he said, "When I first joined Rangers, there were numerous Scottish players with big profiles. Maybe at times there's been something lacking in terms of that Scottish backbone and players that know what it means to play for Rangers. Perhaps we haven't seen that leadership quality from this team. So I think the appointment of Barry Ferguson points to a better future, at least in the short term. But I'm really interested in what it could be long term, I have to say. And that's one of the reasons why I'm coming over on Thursday. Obviously, coming back is always fantastic, but this time it's about showing that commitment and support to Barry Ferguson. I think he needs that at this moment. It was a bold move from the club to get Barry and his guys in, but it was also a very brave move for these former players as well to come back at a very difficult moment. It could go horribly wrong, but at least they are trying, and that's why I feel I need to be there as well. At least being there, it's about showing we are behind you. Hopefully you can get this right in a very difficult moment, and then we will see what happens next season." And that's a little kind of hint that, he thinks they might still be around. He goes on to say in the piece that we've got up online just now that he believes that Rangers might repeat the run to Seville of 3 years ago. He says the Europa League is there for the taking. We have seen Rangers reaching that final recently, so why not? That could happen again. So there's a lot at stake in this season, and I'm rooting for this management team, and I'll certainly be there to show them my support on Thursday night. So, you don't often hear from Brian Laudrup, but he feels suitably motivated to reach out and deliver this message and make it public. And I find that interesting. And I actually get a lot of what he says as well, that when Brian Laudrup joined Rangers, I think it was in 1994, you had that backbone of Scottish guys. You had your, I don't know, Ali McCoy's, Ian Ferguson's, Richard Goff's, John Brown's. They were all around the place. And these were guys that kind of connected to the fans and were able to educate the new arrivals of what was required, the standards, etc. And Brian Laudrup makes the point that because the game has changed in the way it's changed over the years, Rangers don't have that sort of identity in the playing squad. So I think his point is here, well, do you know what? If you can't have it in your playing squad, have it in your coaching staff.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense. And I'm inclined to agree with a lot of what Brian Laudrup has said there. But again, you know, it's you have to factor in the fact that, you know, Rangers have got two massive games over the course of, 4 or 5 days, which could reshape the whole argument where Barry Ferguson is concerned. It could enhance the argument or it could destroy the argument. And I think that's the point that Laudrup's making. But I find it's interesting. I'm sure the Rangers fans will be interested to find out that this guy is so interested and so committed to this that he's going to fly over to be at Ibrox in person. Interesting. It feels like a real interesting moment. And I think there'll be a lot of former players that would be nodding in agreement with what Brian Laudrup was saying in this piece and in tomorrow's.
I mean, you're talking about one of the best players to ever play for Rangers.
Yeah, well, that's exactly that.
This is a guy whose name does carry weight. And Johnny here in the comment section says, hey, if Barry's good enough for Brian, he's good enough for me. Laudrup was really wrong. So, I mean, I think that kind of encapsulates the respect that they'll have for pretty much any of Laudrup's opinions on Rangers.
You said it, Daniel, and if you were to look across the city for a comparison, it would be a Henrik Larsson, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And he's revered by the Celtic supporters. And if Henrik Larsson felt motivated to come out with some sort of message in terms of the direction he felt the club were moving in, and of course, there's nothing for Celtic to complain about. There's no need for Henrik Larsson to ride to anybody's rescue. But it's not that way at Rangers. Rangers have got themselves into a mess. And the piece that I write with Brian Laudrup tomorrow, he admits he's hurting. He might be sitting in Denmark, but he's hurting at the state that Rangers have got themselves into. Mm-hmm. And it's quite emotionally charged stuff from Brian Laudrup. He spoke really passionately, really strongly, and you know, he was unwavering in his backing for Barry Ferguson and this new look coaching team.
So for Rangers fans that haven't read it, it's on Record Sport Online as we speak right now, if you want to read part 1. And part 2, as you say, Keith, it'll be in the paper tomorrow.
The full interview, parts 1 and 2, will be in tomorrow's Daily Record, and obviously part 2 will be online as well from tomorrow morning. But yeah, it's something that I think Rangers fans would want to read because he carries weight, doesn't he? It's Brian Laudrup we're talking about here.
Aye. Essential reading for Rangers fans, I suggest.
Mm-hmm.
Away from Rangers, there was obviously a Scotland squad announcement today, Keith. Record Sports' Fraser Wilson was there. I'm delighted to add him to the Hotline Live. How's it going, Fraser?
Good evening. Not bad. Yourself?
Oh, very good, thanks.
Yeah, good to see it.
A few surprises in today's Scotland squad.
Fair to say. Aye, it's maybe quite on Steve Clarke-like, some of the names that are in there. Any more of this, they'll probably need to build a creche at Hampden. But look, I'm obviously being facetious there. But no, the headline names were James Wilson and Lennon Miller, two 18-year-olds who have obviously impressed massively in the Premiership this season. But one of whom only turned 18 last week and is currently studying for his higher exams. Another who's only got a handful of under-21 caps. So, look, it's very much a nod to the future for Steve Clarke, which has been kind of criticised for not doing over the years. But he said himself it's time to lay the foundations for not just himself in the year's time, but those that follow on in the big seat after him. And there's no doubt Lennon Miller is one of the stars of this season, probably leading the way by some distance for Young Player of the Year in Scotland this season, and has all the talent, quality, and do you know what, as Steve Clarke said himself, maturity to handle a step up to the Scotland top team. I mean, here's a guy that was handed the Motherwell armband in the absence of Paul McGinn and Stephen O'Donnell for a League Cup semi-final against Rangers, and has worn it, 9-10 times this season. Don't think anyone doubts his talent and his energy in the middle of the park. Probably more of a surprise was James Wilson. Breakthrough this season at Hearts, 6 goals, which is more than Lawrence Shankland, right enough, for Hearts this season. And you can see month by month, I've seen a lot of Hearts this season, and month by month, he's getting stronger. He's always had a real kind of natural intelligence to his forward play. He's got pace, he's getting stronger, and he's certainly got an eye for goal. So look, Clarke said they'd invited him into a training session with the top team at the tail end of last season and last year, had been really, really impressed by what he saw for James Wilson. So why not? Ben Dokes dropped out through injury, unfortunately. His season looks to be over at Middlesbrough, and his development has been sensational, as we've touched on numerous times now since he came into the Scotland top team. So why not replace him with another couple of bright young hopes, and hopefully they can have a similar impact if they get the chance.
Keith, I was buzzing to see them both included today, particularly Lenny Miller. Like we've talked about this before, I think actually with yourself, Fraser, about whether or not it makes more sense for Lenny Miller to get game time under his belt in under 21s and stuff like that, or should he be in the top team? I would have him in the top team, learning from people like McTominay, Gilmore in Serie A, Premier League players.
100% agree. There are some young guys that you get them into the under 21s and you get a feel, are they capable of making this step? What's the career trajectory? Are they destined to be future full Scotland internationals? I don't think there's any questions hanging over Lennon Miller in that department. We all know he's going to be a Scotland player. We all know that this boy is cut out to play at a really high level. While trying to get results for the under-21s is important for Scott Gemmell, I get all that as well. Now, I'm all for it. I'm all for get him in, get him around it, make him, assimilate with the rest of the squad, get a feel for what it's like, for what the requirements are, for what the protocols are. Just get him in. It'd be great if he could get a cap somewhere along the lines in the next 2 games, but I'm not sure about that. What I am sure about is he'll only benefit from the experience. And I think it's similar for James Wilson. I think he's not as ready as Lennon Miller is. But I think what you have to do is look at the area of the park where Lennon Miller's competing and look where James Wilson's competing. We're not awash with goal-scoring strikers. So if you see one that's coming up that looks promising, and he certainly does that, then why not get him in? There is no negative, there's no downside to this as far as I can see. I don't think physically that James Wilson is really ready to play in international football. I know, Fraser, you're saying he's get stronger. I would probably agree with you there, but he's still growing into his own body. He's still developing physically. Probably Lennon Miller is as well, by the way, but he's got slightly more he's slightly more robust. He's filled out a little bit more than James Wilson has. I think if you were a young kid going in at that level against some of the centre halves that you come up against, I think that could be a bit of an ask. But I think this is more about, look, do you know what? We've already decided you've got a real chance. Let's come in here, train with us, get to know it, get to know how it feels, get to know your responsibilities, get to know the setup, get familiar with it. Because the chances are that you're going to be around for some time to come, the both of them. And I'm really delighted for the two of them, and I'm really delighted that Scottish football continues this recent growth spurt that we've had, with young players coming through, breaking into first teams, going abroad, whatever the next big move is. We're fast tracking our kids now in a way that I can't remember. And all the time that I've been doing this, and it's quite a considerable time, I can't remember a period where we've been the production line has been so effective. and that we've churned out such a high number of real high potential quality kids, and I think that's what we're looking at right now. We're experiencing, we're going through a bit of a golden age for the international team, given that we've reached 2 successive Euros after so long in the wilderness. And the worry is, what happens when this lot kind of get into their 30s? Are we going to drop off the map again? The evidence is there in front of your eyes now. We've got the next crop coming through. And when you combine the likes of Lewis Ferguson come back into the squad, this is really as positive a period of time as I can recall for our national side. And they're not just, you think back to France '98, and we had some exceptional players in that squad at the World Cup. But I think this group, I think it's taken the talent up to a different level. I really do. And I think the potential for growth is clearly outstanding. So yeah, happy days. And I know the international break kind of gets in everybody's road when you're, particularly at the start of the season, because it seems you get back for a few games domestically and then it shuts down again. And I think that irritates people. But I think once you actually remember, I really enjoy watching this Scotland side. Mm-hmm. It's not the same.
It's not the chore it once was.
Chore, well, that's exactly right. It was a chore for a while. It's not a chore anymore to watch this Scotland side. It's exciting. It's good fun.
Well, see on that, before I bring you back in, Fraser, and we've got some comments on this as well. Let's hear a little bit of what Steve Clarke had to say.
I think with Lennon, I've obviously had more chance to watch Lennon. He plays with maturity beyond his years. He captains his club, which is a big thing at such a young age. Good qualities. He can play deep in midfield, can play higher in midfield. Good delivery, box to box, good energy. Now we have to see if he can fit in among the group, and I'm sure he's got a big future in front of him, and it's our job to look after him and try and bring him along. So hopefully this will be the start of it. And it's similar with James. It's someone who catches your eye, runs behind, he looks to score goals, which is a great trait. We're always looking for goal scorers. He's got a few in the Premier League this year. He's got into the team, he's stayed in the team, which tells you that what we saw. I actually brought him into one of the camps last year. We were short a couple of bodies and brought a couple of young boys into the camp, and James was one of them. Caught our eye, and just in a short training session. He's obviously caught the eye of the people at Hearts. He's playing week in, week out. He's got good pace about him, good enthusiasm, and another one that I think can have a big future. But for now is to come into the squad and see how he measures up. When I first came into the job, I looked at the squad we had and I felt they were quite inexperienced. So was to try and give them caps and make them more seasoned international players, and we've done that. Now you get to a stage where I've been in, it's coming up 6 years in the job. Feels longer than that, but it's coming up 6 years. And you have to cast your eye to the future as well, because some of these players will, by a natural wastage, will go over the top, won't be available for the next campaigns after whoever's in charge, but afterwards. So you have to start looking at who you can bring through. We've got some younger ones already in the squad. Billy, obviously Ben Doak had come into the squad and done really well, but not available for this camp. So it's just a matter of trying to get the balance right so we can move forward with a balanced squad.
Look, some comments on this. Colin Mathers simply says it's too soon for Wilson. Craig Downey says throw Wilson in with the Sharks. Good prospect, but too soon, I think. And one of these comments here, Keith, calls you out directly. What are you talking about, Keith? Where is the growth with keepers, centre-half, strikers? It's one of the worst-looking squads I've ever seen, which seems a bit mad to me, but right of reply for you, Keith?
I don't know if I need to give that a courtesy of a response.
That's fair enough, eh?
You've got Ben Doak, you've got Billy Gilmore, you've got Lewis Ferguson, you've got Lennon Miller, you've got
James Austin,
Aaron Hickey and Nathan Patterson, albeit they're not in this squad. You've got good young quality players in various, in most departments of the team. James Wilson, yes, I agree, I think it is too soon for him. But clearly the plan is get him in, get him involved, make him feel part of the setup, because the kids get every chance.
Yeah.
I think there's so much to be excited about, and I don't know, maybe... listen, I get it. Some people prefer club football and they can't really be bored with Scotland. But I've went through the agony of watching Scotland all over the world for 30 years. And believe me when I say it's enjoyable. Everything that we're getting out of this group of players and the potential for what lies in front, it's an enjoyable experience to be around. And I've been with a lot of squads where it was the absolute opposite. So yeah, you be as downbeat as you like, whatever your name is.
I don't even get a name. CSC.
Yeah, but I'm quietly enjoying it.
Aye. Fraser, did Clarke give any clues at all about whether or not either of the youngsters will get any game time against Greece?
No, none. Well, I'm laughing there because as I'm reading them, the comments coming in about too soon for Wilson and throwing Wilson in with the Sharks, I'm automatically thinking they're talking about me. I was definitely in with a few Sharks at Hampden today, I tell you.
Too soon for this, Wilson.
No, look.
Have we got the equivalent of an under-21 programme that we can put Fraser into for?
They can qualify, yeah.
Build up some experience.
Look, I don't. I wouldn't be surprised to see Lennon Miller get minutes in one of these two games, depending how they're going. I don't think there's any chance at all James Wilson will get a minute. He's in there entirely for the experience, as we were talking about earlier, to getting around the surroundings, maybe rub the experience of the more well-known players rub off on him, and just to get a feel for it for the future. There's also still an opening for George Hurst, by the way, who they're still trying to get the paperwork finalised on.
That's right.
And if that does go through in the next 5-6 days, expect to see him called up to this squad, which would obviously shunt James Wilson further down the pecking order. George Hurst having scored 3 goals in 19 games for Ipswich this season is one that Clarke spent a month or two trying to convince to switch from England, who is represented up to under 20 level, and is now 99% convinced that, he will be happy to make that switch. And so Fraser, expect that to happen.
He's a very different physical specimen, isn't he? What we're talking about.
26-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I think that Steve Clarke is looking at him thinking, Lyndon Dykes isn't getting any younger. He is having his issues with injury. But I think Hurst could fulfil a very similar sort of role within the squad and within the team.
As does young Tommy Conway, who I thought's done very well. And he's still in the squad, obviously. I thoroughly expect Shea Adams to start over in Greece. But no, to go back to the original point, I don't think Lennon Miller or James Wilson will be guaranteed minutes at all. No chance. They're there for the experience more than anything. But look, going back to what Keith said, it really irks me when folk throw out the cheap accusation that Scotland isn't producing players anymore. We've had a ream of them since probably going back to when Billy Gilmore first burst on the scene. And now, the squad's full of them. Aaron Hickey coming back from injury, thank goodness, 18 months of injury hell. Obviously, Kieran Tierney, you get Lewis Ferguson, who I'm delighted to see back in the squad, and I really, really hope now he can go on to establish himself in the starting 11 somehow. We need to maybe time for Kenny McLean to take a step aside and allow Lewis Ferguson to go in there in a kind of hold midfield role that he's been playing for Bologna since he came back for that injury. Because a Serie A midfielder, Lewis Ferguson, Billy Gilmore and Scott McTominay just really, really excites me.
Why do people not get excited about that?
Oh, don't ask me. Look, I'm not
astonishing.
International football. Scotland is my team. It's only team that I actually do get passionate about. So, having followed them for 30 odd years now, this is as exciting as it's been, So, but there's evidence all over the place. Maybe the only thing is we keep producing fullbacks and midfielders. If only we could come up with a 30-goal a season striker, or maybe a big dominant Virgil van Dijk style centre half, then we'd be laughing. But to go back to goalkeepers, Angus Gunn's injured again. That's why he's on the squad. He actually hurt his hamstring leaping at Horden for Norwich last week, believe it or not. As Clarke said, there wasn't a lot of choice there. Not a lot of keepers playing regular football, so he's opted for Liam Kelly, that's had 6 games for Rangers in the last couple of months. all points towards Craig Gordon getting cap number 80 and probably 81 as well to jump above Fletcher in the all-time record list, and that would put him 4th, just under Andy Robertson. And by the way, closing in on Jim Leighton's 91, the most capped Scotland goalkeeper of all time. So
tell me this, Fraser.
What's that?
Tell me this. Was he asked today at all about, obviously the team has changed since Kieran Tierney kind of fell out the squad.
Yeah.
And we had the specially tailored kind of system which allowed him to play Tierney and Robertson in the same team, and we all acknowledged that was just smart thinking, that was the clever thing to do. But the team has progressed a little bit in style.
Yeah,
we've gone to a 4. I know it's early days because the game's a while away, but was there any questions asked about how he sees trying to fit the two of them back in again now?
Yeah, always a bit wary of this because it was in the embargoed section, Keith. So I didn't want to give too much away. But yeah, it basically kept all options open. You know,
Right.
no Kieran Tierney could come in for Grant Hanley in the left centre half of a back 4. I doubt he'll switch back to the back 3 with the wing backs again, because the back 4's just started working so well for us at the end of the Nations League there. I think he also made a joke about Tierney playing left wing for Arsenal in the last few weeks. So plenty of options there to get Kieran Tierney shoehorned back into the team. But there's a few interesting decisions, isn't there, after that brilliant back-to-back win over Croatia and Poland. Interesting to see what it does with certain players, whether Lewis Ferguson does go straight back in, who goes in up top in place of Lyndon Dykes, who replaces Ben Doak.
Right.
More importantly, you know, Ben Doak came out with a really important assist in both those wins, and it's been brilliant, an absolute breath of fresh air playing out wide. So, some really interesting selection choices for Steve Clarke next week.
It feels like a bit of a hammer blow to lose Ben Doak, doesn't it? Just when you think, oh, come on, wee man, you need to stay fit, you need to just get as many games under your belt and really establish yourself. It will happen for Ben Doak. Do you know the one thing that gives us a bit of comfort? You look at it and you say, well, do you know what? There are attacking options. There are options that Steve Clarke can play around with here, most notably, you know, Ryan Christie, who does such a good job playing in and around the striker. He's such an influence creatively. So, although we're so excited about Ben Doak, and although I'm quietly a bit gutted that he's not going to be around for these games and that he's probably going to miss the rest of the season, I don't. The kind of curious thing is, I think we can handle that just now. There might come a point in time where the idea of losing Ben Doak might give us suicidal tendencies for any length of time because he'll become such an integral, prominent match winner, much in the same way, hopefully, that you know, Wales a few years ago, if Gareth Bale was unavailable for selection, it was just turn off the telly time. And that might well be the case further down the line for Ben Doak. Maybe I'm glad that we're not entirely dependent upon him just yet.
Do you know what else, Keith? I was trying to find positives in the Doak situation. We've obviously got Greece home and away in the World Cup qualifiers as well after the summer.
Yeah.
So we don't want to show all our hands, do we?
That's right. Hit him with this wild card.
So he can come in fresh, hopefully stronger, ready to hit the ground running for the World Cup qualifying campaign, and he can tear them apart. And potentially the more important field of trying to qualify for the World Cup.
Boyd Craig in the comments says, I hope Lewis Ferguson gets a chance. He's bossing it in Italy. I do think there's a thirst for Scotland fans to see Ferguson get a run in the team, because this whole, how long has he been in Italy now? 2.5 seasons. He's not really had a run for Scotland in that time.
I know, and he's coming up for 26-year-old. You know, at times now, he's coming up for what should be the prime of his career, and the performances are showing that he is coming into the prime of his career. I mean, what was the award they won the season before last? The best midfielder in Serie A. I mean,
what an accolade, wasn't it?
I mean,
that's an accolade that is. And I can't even get into a Scotland international team. So I've said it, as I said earlier, really, really exciting times in the middle of that park to have a 100% Serie A midfield quality.
I don't know. You said it, Keith.
The thing you've got to bear in mind with Lewis Ferguson is Lewis Ferguson couldn't get into a midfield because Callum McGregor was there. And you know, so the squad is evolving. and he's had to be really patient. And obviously the injury hasn't helped that. But I completely agree with Fraser, completely agree with you, Daniel. He's ready. This is his time. And I really like Kenny McLean and everything he continues to contribute. And he's 100% a guy worth keeping around. But I think, Steve Clarke will now be realising you've got Lewis Ferguson, McTominay, Billy Gilmore. That's Tartanaccio. Get them in that middle of the pitch. And you know, I mean, this is what I'm saying. When all the years of watching Scotland, stretching back long before I was a journalist, never once would you have imagined in your wildest dreams that you'd see a Scotland side with 3 central midfield players or 3 midfield men who play their club football in Serie A. It just was not even remotely possible.
You said
a striker ahead of them also playing.
Exactly.
Adams, aye. You said it, Keith. I've got no idea how you couldn't be excited by that. Scotland the Brave in the comment section, kind of ironically named because this is a bit of a downer of a comment. He says, "You lot at the Daily Record kidding yourselves on. If you say Ferguson, Miller, etc. would get a sniff if Callum McGregor was there. Be honest with yourself." The only reason I'm reading that out though is because you touched on it, Keith. Callum McGregor isn't there anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Someone. Why does one have to be better than another? Honestly, we ourselves up. We kill ourselves in this country, man.
No, listen. If you had been Scotland manager when Callum McGregor was available to you, Fraser, you're not leaving him out the team.
I've said that numerous times. Yeah.
Even though Lewis Ferguson was progressing and pulling up trees in Italy, there was no way that Callum McGregor comes out of that team.
Couldn't get him in.
Yes,
Couldn't get Lewis Ferguson in.
Lewis Ferguson has had to be patient. But, you know, this is the moment that the door opens for him, as far as I can see.
Scott obviously points out that he had a very bad injury as well, Ferguson. But our old pal, Keith Gianni, is in touch. He's pointed out that Ferguson missed the Euros with injury. Otherwise, he could have moved with Motta to Juventus, which apparently was on the cards last summer if he hadn't been injured. So
there was about 5 or 6 Italian top flight clubs who were ready to make a move for Lewis Ferguson last summer.
Really? That many?
Yep.
Wow.
I'm talking about the 2 clubs from Milan.
Wow.
I'm talking about Juventus. Napoli were showing interest before they went elsewhere, you know, with McTominay and Billy Gilmore. I'm trying to think. Parma, maybe. There was about 5 or 6 clubs that were all making their intentions clear. I happen to know the agent involved in it.
Well, so, Keith Gianni in the comment section says he's your credible source. He's the one that's told you that.
He's not even got a credible sauce for his pizza talking. That's what he wants to concentrate on.
Fraser, before I let you go, I don't know if we'll get a chance to chat again before the games. Tough against Greece. This is a good Greek team.
Oof,
it's going to be very, very difficult to win over 2 legs.
Oh, seen the recent record? I knew it had been good, but when I went and looked at how good it's been, this is a force. They've only lost 2 of their last 12 games, stretching back a year and a half, and that's against England and Germany. But obviously, and amongst all that, they also won at Wembley convincingly as well. Don't concede many goals at all. Don't score an awful lot, but they don't really have household names other than maybe Liverpool's Kostas Tsimikas.
Second choice left back behind Andy Robertson.
There you go. You know, but the sum of their parts, you know, that they seem a really, really strong outfit. Just looking at their results recently, they beat Ireland home and away in the Nations League. They won at Wembley, as I said earlier. I think all 3 of those games have kept a clean sheet. This seems like a really efficient mob. They're 39th in the FIFA rankings, 6 places above ourselves. We're going to have to work to keep our place in this top tier of Nations League. But as we proved in November, we went over in Poland, beating Croatia at home. Nothing. This Scotland team aren't fazed by anybody. They don't seem to fear anybody. In fact, they relish the task. So, what's not to be confident going in? There's no way they'll underestimate them. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is with a prediction, Fraser. How do you think it will go? Do you think
over the 2 legs?
Do you think we'll beat them?
There'll be a goal in it either way. Why not? 2-1 over 2 legs to Scotland.
Fraser, it's always a pleasure having you in the hotline.
James Wilson with both goals.
Lennon Miller assists.
My nephew, James.
Fraser, thanks so much for joining us in the Hotline Live. Much appreciated.
Cheers.
Cheers, Fraser.
See you later.
Keith, how do you see the Greek tie going?
I think Fraser's right. They're a very competent outfit, and they're punching above their weight at this level, but so are we. I don't see Greek players all over the English top flight, as Fraser just said as well. I don't see them running the show in midfield in Serie A. I'm excited to see how Scotland match up against them, and I'm confident. And I actually think, I said this some while back when John Souttar, before his latest injury issues, I think he's the best that we've got in the centre of defence. So I think him coming back and being fit and getting back to form, and he has been right back to his best looking, especially last week in Istanbul for Rangers. I think he makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And one of our kind of areas of the team where we need all the help we can get, I think John Souttar becomes a really big character and personality for Steve Clarke. Mm-hmm. And I think Steve Clarke, he knows how to get the best out of this group of players. They enjoy working with him. They trust in him. Look, it's going to be hard work over 2 legs.
But it'll be hard for Greece as well.
It will be, and I think we'll make it harder for them than they will for us. So I go along with Fraser's optimistic sort of outlook on it. I think we'll do enough over the 2 legs. Certainly, fingers crossed.
Before we finish, a couple of more comments. Gringo says, yeah, Ferguson had to leave Scotland to enhance his career. It was a gamble that paid off for him so far. McGregor served his country. If Ferguson gets the nods, he will be good. And Craigie here says, Forza Juve, if Scotland need a strong, in-your-face striker instead of Dykes, Simon Murray should get a shot at it. Now,
you put this boy up to this.
This sounds like a plant, because Craigie, you're speaking my language. I think Simon Murray, 23 goals last season, 17 this season, for 2 teams really struggling down the bottom of the league. I would have given him a shout, but I think Craigie, you and I are the only 2.
What age is Simon Murray?
32.
He's not exactly the future then, is he?
No. That's
They're
fair.
not inviting him in to give him the James Wilson tour around the facilities and say, look, get used to this because this is where your future lies. Are you?
No one's debating that. But I don't know. I just think he's a really good striker, and I just think it's bizarre he's just constantly been overlooked.
Is this because he's your football friend?
Look,
isn't he?
Look, we
his
might
numbers
have shared,
on your phone.
Might have shared a few texts and that, but he's just, he likes the Hotline Live. What can I say?
Don't worry, big man. I'll give you a nice big plug in Hotline Live. I'll force Steve Clarke.
He's only human. Do you know what I mean?
Opinion. And by the way, you're winning the argument. You've already got people texting in support your argument.
Scotland the Brave. Simon Murray's bullied both Celtic and Rangers centre backs in the past. To be fair, he'd be a good squad player, and I'm a Celtic man. So there you go.
Didn't Scotland the Brave just say Scotland were rubbish about 5 minutes ago?
He did say that before, but there you go. He's made up for it in my eyes. Keith,
yes, Simon Murray capped campaign. Launched by Daniel Caw on Hotline Live. Brilliant.
Absolutely. Steve Clarke, get your act together. I think that brings to the end of Tuesday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thank you so much for all the comments, particularly the ones at the end there that said I was right. And we will be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Keith, it's always a pleasure.
Yep, and remember just to hammer home the message that Brian Laudrup interview, part 1 is online just now, part 2 will follow in tomorrow's paper and tomorrow morning online, and I really do think it's something that the Rangers fans should take a look at. I think it's a message that should land with more than a few of them.
Aye, essential reading for Rangers fans. It's online now, part 1, and as Keith says, part 2, the full interview, the paper tomorrow, and online. We hope you can join us again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.